This is the first in-person Edge session we've had in a while. Maybe two reasons why. There has been quite a lot of desire and interest from people to have more in-person. I'm very happy to have in-person Edge sessions. Obviously, it only benefits those in Johannesburg or those here. And we'll then make sure that this is becoming a feature. We just obviously got to figure out how we make it on a little less intensive basis here. Pete, it looks like I feel like I'm in the studio already, but thank goodness for that. But also I think today, importantly, you know, as I said, once a month we're going to be having an external subject matter expert join us. In this case, we are so lucky to have Amyn, who lives in Dubai, but he is in South Africa because he's been here for the Mining Indaba. And I just think he was very happy to come and share with us today his experience with COP28 as a presenter. He was a keynote speaker there as well in one of the breakaways. And I think that's something we also, a lot of people don't quite know what COP28 is. Like, what is that? So let's just declutter it. I think what's important about COP28, and as we'll hear about later, is it's something very close to our heart at Fedgroup regarding sustainability, the world we live in, and doing good, and sort of, you know, reducing the carbon footprints. And I won't steal his thunder, but effectively he's happily coming. He'll be here at around 9:20 to take us through half an hour chat, and he's a fantastic guy. As I say, he's lived in amazing places like Uganda, you know, and in Dubai now, but he's a real global citizen, I mean. And I had the privilege of working with him at FirstRand when I was there for a short period in time now. So, yeah, looking forward to Amyn coming to see us in person. Okay, so I think just generally as a bridge and segue to chatting to Amyn, I wanted to, it would be remiss of us not to talk a bit about SONA, State of the Nation. And just get your feelings. I mean, some would have watched it, some would have rather watched the cricket. I don't know, you know, I just think it's an important one just to share what everyone believed their feelings were about State of the Nation. It is a precursor to the budget speech coming up in 2 weeks' time, in which we are doing some exciting things around. But yeah, I'm getting warmed up. The marketing team are taking me way out of my comfort zone in 2 weeks' time, eating hot foods and being on live cameras and stuff. But you know what? I'm looking forward to it. And I think that might be fun. I actually feel sorry for Davy Rutt, to be honest. This is going to be way out of his comfort zone. But I think it's a great thing we're doing now to align ourselves with industry experts. But anyway, let's get back to SONA. So open to comments. I mean, I won't give my comment first. Hey, who wants to online as well? Let us know what your observations were, what you felt.
Paul. Thanks. I thought it was a bit confusing, the relevance of 94 versus what's happened the last few terms. I understand that it's always to have it's a good way to have a pointer to start with or from, but in my view, it's got nothing to do. It's got more to do with what they've done since they've had control of the economy, the strings, and there was a lot of smoke screens there. That's my view.
Okay. Yeah, I suppose one comment, and actually Amyn has arrived, so I'm going to pop down and fetch him. But I suppose on that matter, there was an interesting comment, and I quite enjoyed the comments around the fact that the president was far more clear around what's happened in the past as opposed to what should happen in the future. So, and I think that's an important one, is that, I mean, it's the state of the nation, but I think what we like to see in a State of the Nation address is a very clear vision about the future, etc. And I personally didn't get that confidence that I would like to have gotten from someone saying, we're very sure about this, we're very sure about that. One thing I'd notice as well is that I genuinely love an individual or an organization that is willing to admit their weaknesses, admit their faults, and move on and actually be and I don't think there was enough admission of, this is where we haven't done well, but this is where we are acknowledging it, and I just think that was lacking a bit. And I think there's nothing better than seeing someone's vulnerability, and I know there was this comment about emotional, etc. Say it in words. There we go. Fantastic.
So you can keep the mic.
Yeah, thank you. I'm so attached to this now. Shame, poor Pete. I mean, Pete came to me yesterday and said, right, we're going to mic you up. And I said, Pete, I'm not having that thing wrapped around my head.
Now you're regretting it, right?
No, I love this. This is great. Because I feel like, want to be pop star. Oops, I did it again.
Have you seen Britney Spears? She's gone absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely crazy.
But she's angry with some people in life, isn't she? She's angry with dad and angry with mom and... Sorry, guys.
Typical human being.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also mentioned the employment figures, what they mentioned, doubling up on vacuum, in my opinion. That was quite interesting. That was quite interesting, the employment numbers and all these things. I don't know if I agree on any of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just as a little aside, I was in Stellenbosch yesterday and walking along and then suddenly smelt something that we haven't smelt for quite some time and realized it was tar.
Sorry, say that? Yeah, you were driving on...
No, she was in Stellenbosch yesterday and then suddenly smelt a smell that I hadn't smelt for a very long time and realized it was fresh tar. Like, when did you last smell
the freshly laid
tar in your suburb?
That's incredible.
I mean, yeah. You're right. Okay, so you were in La La Land yesterday. I mean, that's an interesting one, Grant. I mean, you were in and out there. You were in a part of the world that obviously a huge amount of people are flocking to. I mean, it almost feels like, you probably felt it as well. That State of the Nation, you were, if you listen to State of the Nation and you compare it to where you were, you think, now, am I in a different
I mean, South Africa's just never been about averages. And I think that's one of the tricky things. When you read anything on paper, South Africa is never average. It's always been these totally distinct bands. And I think you're starting to feel it even more.
Yeah, the disparity is even tougher and tougher. Well, okay, so look, I mean, we will be covering our budget speeches in detail the next month, but because we've just taken delivery of Amyn Esmail, looking very smart, the only man with the jacket on here this morning. Yeah, this is your uniform. So I'll give you actually that's your mark there. So, I mean, thanks so much. I mean, I gave a brief overview, but I want you to properly introduce yourself. But I was just saying what a pleasure it is to have you, and we're lucky enough to have you in South Africa. And so, as I said, Amyn and I have known each other for many, many years, and he's doing some very exciting things. He lives in Dubai. And I think one of the things that I was aware of that we were chatting about last year was his involvement in COP28. And I just thought, because you're here, this is a Friday morning info sharing session that is totally voluntary, and there are people online as well, by the way, but they can see you, but you can't see them because we've got the presentation that will flip up. But I thought, what better thing to do to get a bit of info about what it was all about and what the experience was like from someone who was there and a bit of an expert in the field. I think importantly as well, I mean, Amyn and I are also having interesting conversations around his business and our businesses because there's such that alignment around sustainability, et cetera, and I think you've seen some amazing things in life. So it's a pleasure to have you here this morning now. And this is the business end, and after this we're going to go for coffee.
Sounds good.
Okay. But yeah, welcome, my good man.
Well, since Paul didn't give me the coffee first, I might be a bit sort of responding, but please don't hold that against me. Yeah, that's yours. Is it powered on? Oh, perfect.
That's perfect.
Right, awesome. All right, guys. Well, thanks for having me. It's really good to meet you all. Just by way of background, my name is Amyn Esmail. My company is Amal Sustainability Partners. We're based out of Dubai, and we're an ESG and sustainability advisory business. We work primarily with investment funds, family offices, and their portfolio companies to start looking at ESG and sustainability more from a value creation lens versus a tick box exercise or placing ESG under the CSR buckets. We work across the GCC, Africa, and we work with other organizations that are looking to come into this region and that want to create impacts. As a business, we not only do the strategy development for our clients, but we also build up, we do the ESG and sustainability diligence. We take equity positions in some of the companies that we work with because we're all about building long-term value and really improving livelihoods through sustainability. And the last thing that we do is, where possible, and when we have a deeper relationship with our clients, we assist on the capital raising funding through DFIs, through family offices, or other institutional investors. So COP28, it was really an honor to have to live in the city where COP28 was hosted. Last year, 2023, and now going into 2024, the UAE government declared that the year is going to be the year of sustainability. So all efforts are moving in that direction. There's been a lot of emphasis and funding that's being allocated, and I'll show it to you in some of the other slides. But really, the government's driving sustainability and trying to move towards building a better future and showing that Dubai can be the gold standard for the world. So COP28 was the 28th conference of the parties. It was convened in Dubai for the first 2 weeks of December, and it was the largest COP ever. So it was held at the expo site. It was split into 2 zones, the green zone and the blue zone. The green zone was primarily for private sector, and it was the first COP actually that was open to the public. So residents could actually buy a ticket and go and visit different companies, listen to different panels, and learn what was happening collectively in the world.
I mean, just a quick question. Who is the ultimate sponsor of COP?
The UNFCCC.
Okay, so the United Nations.
Yeah, Foundation for Climate Change, yeah.
Okay, fine.
And you know what was really interesting about this COP, it was the first COP since Paris that they did a global stocktake, and to see how far we've come from the Paris Agreement. I want to move to the next slide.
Yeah, there we go. Is that right?
Yeah, that's it. So the global stocktake is a comprehensive assessment of the progress towards the goals of the Paris Agreement, as I said. At COP28, we saw that we're not on track to achieving the global limit warming of 1.5 degrees Celsius. We've identified key gaps in mitigation, adaptation, and finance, and we've highlighted the urgency. I think one of the conversations that are actually multiple conversations I heard while I was at COP was that people were actually just tired of talking. And now people, I think with this global stocktake and some of the work that's being done, you know, almost a fire is being lit behind people to actually get them to do things together. And they've also realized that there's a lot of work and importance needed to bring people together as opposed to working in different silos.
That target of 1.5 degrees Celsius, is that to limit that global warming, to limit that temperature increase globally over a period in time, or?
So we cannot go above 1.5 degrees Celsius.
Absolutely.
That would be detrimental to the planet.
That would be detrimental, okay, fine.
So we're doing everything, the international community is doing everything in their power to bring that down. So some of the findings, emissions are still rising, and current pledges by governments, corporates, organizations is very inefficient. What we're seeing is that the closer we get to 2024, 2025, actually we're already in 2024, but you know, the cost to take action is going to become a lot more.
Yeah.
So it's actually in organizations' interest to do things now versus waiting until the 11th hour. Developed countries need to increase their financial support for developing countries, and adaptation efforts need to be significantly scaled up. So you can go to the next slide. So some of the key achievements at COP28.
So this was as a result of the 2 weeks.
As a result of the 2 week, yeah. It culminated in a groundbreaking signaling of the beginning of the end of the fossil fuel era. And you're seeing a lot of commitments that are being made towards renewables. I think what's really interesting is that a country like South Africa, because of the poor infrastructure, has almost been forced to move away and move towards renewables, which is almost a blessing in disguise, to be very honest.
Well, I mean, funny enough, on that matter, where you used to live in Uganda, I noticed that when I was on a program there in Uganda, the same story. When I was there in Uganda, the telecoms and the banking telecoms was so advanced because they had to. So
exactly.
They actually leapfrog. So I think that's the same thing. Countries will often leapfrog.
Absolutely. And you know, what's really interesting, on the rest of the continent, you know, power cuts are a norm. When load shedding started in South Africa, it became very, you know, everyone was freaking out, not knowing what to do. And now what I'm seeing, load shedding has been going on for about 2 years now, or whatever, or is it longer? 5.
Probably 5, yeah, it's longer.
Shows how long I haven't lived in South Africa for.
We've become numb to it, I mean.
But everybody has solar, everybody has a water tank, and that's something that the rest of the continent and the rest of the developing world is used to.
Yeah.
There's been agreements for rapid decarbonization and a commitment to increase financial support for developing nations. And I'll show a slide with how much money has been committed to during COP. So at the end of COP, there was something called the UAE consensus that was developed. Accelerated transition, so move away from fossil fuels by 2050. Ambitious targets were set for economy-wide emission reduction and targets, and enhanced adaptation finance. All right. So from a financing instrument point of view, there are a lot of investment opportunities that were unlocked. This includes green bonds, climate action funds. You know, $2 billion Dubai Infrastructure Fund was pledged. And then there's also been a lot of importance towards public-private partnerships.
Okay, so that's a big one.
Right. Now, this slide's really important. The slide was taken from a presentation done by PwC at one of the panels at COP. But it just shows how much money was pledged, and all these funds were pledged within the first week of COP.
And I mean, in your experience, I mean, because you see this, when something's pledged, when it's almost called on, it's there. I mean, they don't pledge.
They don't pledge. It's a commitment of funds.
Yeah.
But you know, accessing those funds sometimes become a challenge.
Yeah. Okay. Fine.
So what's really interesting here is the food fund with the UAE and the Gates Foundation.
Yes.
You know, Gates does a lot of work in sub-Saharan Africa, and they have a very big impact and focus on impact within the markets. The Loss and Damage Fund was a global fund that was put together and pledged by all countries, and on the bottom right, the UAE banks committed to $270 billion in climate projects, which is obscene.
So I mean, let's just a quick question on, say, food fund. So that is UAE and Gates Foundation pledging $200 million to I suppose, food security.
Yeah.
Then it's a matter of and does a fund like that then commit it to certain parts of the world, or is it very much now open to say where we can then progress food security globally?
So it's very much Africa focused because of Gates' strategic focus. Gates is actually, interesting enough, I found they're doubling down on their presence in Africa, and they're building a very big regional headquarters in Kenya.
In Kenya.
But yeah, there's a big focus on the global south, and the UAE-Africa corridor is being emphasized a lot right now. And that's for a couple of reasons. One, because the UAE has just joined BRICS, so there's a lot of alignment within the new world order, so to speak, and because I think the UAE as a nation and other GCC states are looking to Africa to provide food security for the Gulf. So just a couple of conversations that we're involved in, and this could potentially be another area where we can align, is that the UAE sovereign funds are looking to acquire agriculture assets in Africa. They have a very keen interest in South Africa because of how developed agriculture is over here, and they really want to take positions. Yeah. So if they're very good performing assets that are in your portfolio or within your sphere of influence, some of the offices, including the big players like ADQ and Mubadala, are quite interested in that.
Yeah, I think some of the conversations we've had, I mean, in your wisdom around running a business that actually then links the dots, that's, making sure it positions these assets right, is that a lot of these type of funds, you've sort of got to go and talk to them. You sort of, this managed by remote doesn't work. You've got to then go and have a conversation, engage in the pleasantries around this. This is part of that process of unlocking the money from the commitment.
And look, you're 100% right. And the UAE is very relationship driven. You can't have a conversation over Zoom. You're going to lose the guy within 5 minutes or the lady. But you're also, it takes time to build that trust, and also to find ways of getting away from the red tape, because what you find even with some of the bigger family offices linked to the royal families of Abu Dhabi and Dubai is that there's a lot of gatekeepers, and the gatekeepers oftentimes try to extort money. So what you have to do is if you have the relationships, you're able to bypass all that and start talking to the right people.
Yeah.
And, sorry, just a question. Are these so these sort of funds? Do these funds take equity positions, or they debt, or they? I mean, in terms of food security, are they sort of offtake? What do they look like?
There are different structures: debt, equity, etc. So the sovereign funds in the UAE, ADQ Mubadala fund that we work with very closely, called Spaces Invest, as part of the Al Nahyan family in Abu Dhabi. But what they all like to take equity positions in the company. They want to take majority, or at very minimum, they want management control. So that's their way to do it. Gates Foundation, USAID, and other organizations like that, either they do grants or concessionary loans into the businesses, oftentimes at very preferential rates.
So before you jump onto the next slide, I mean, just when you're there, I mean, when you're actually at COP and you're on site, is it almost that campus environment where you sort of moving from green zone, blue zones?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
blue zone was for diplomats, international observers, and the press.
So it's high security.
Very high security.
Yeah,
you needed
fine.
accreditation to go in.
Fine.
The green zone. Did anybody ever go to the expo in Dubai last year? So it's a very big area that was developed for the expo, with different buildings and structures, and each and what they did is they built different hubs at COP. So that the Tech and Innovation Hub, they had the Climate Fund, the Banking Hub, etc.
Okay, cool.
All right. These are just some additional funds that were pledged during COP. Germany 6 billion, EU 1 billion, Microsoft 1 billion.
Carbon removal technology.
Sorry, can I ask just one more question? So, for me, it always seems like there's an overemphasis on carbon versus everything, if that makes sense. And as a genuine question, what is it that so I know there's this link between increased carbon levels and temperature.
Mm-hmm.
But what causes it? What actually causes that increase in temperature as a result of increased carbon in the atmosphere?
So the technical answer to that I would need to look up. I don't have the answer, but I guess it's just the emissions and the gases that are going into the atmosphere that increase the temperature. But again, I don't have the technical answer to that. But when you start talking about carbon and so forth, there's a lot of emphasis that's being placed on reduction of carbon emissions to drop the temperatures. But what I feel that a lot of people aren't talking about is, how do we solve for that? Like, what can we do at the grassroots level? And agriculture is one area that I think we can, if we crack that, we can actually start reducing greenhouse gas emissions, right? So, there are a couple of projects that we're involved with as a company. The one is, when you look at the animal value chain, cattle is probably one of the highest emitters of greenhouse gases. But we've engaged a company out of Sharjah, set up by a mother and daughter team who are very unassuming. The daughter was just awarded Forbes 30 under 30, but they've built a vertical farm that's about 1,200 square feet in size that grows 15 tons of animal feed per day. Now this is wheatgrass and barley grass, but the advantage of that is that it improves animal health, which reduces greenhouse gas emissions because the cows put off less methane. But what it also does, it improves the economics of a farm, which improves the weight gain ratios and the milk yields of a cow. So you're having to slaughter less cows to get the same results, and that solves the problem, right? The other thing that we're doing is that we're very heavily involved on the food waste side of the conversation. UN Environmental Program, UNEP, did a study that said if food waste was a country, it'd be the third highest emitter of greenhouse gases behind the US and China. Sure. So if you start solving for food waste, be it through post-harvest storage, et cetera, you then have, or upcycling food waste, you can actually reduce greenhouse gas emissions and start solving this problem while putting a lot of money in the investor's pocket as well as the putting money back into the community's pocket.
Because I mean, for me, that's always seemed like the problem is often we're tackling, let's say, at a sort of 1% of 100 rather than 40% of the 100. And as you say, like food waste, for example, is more than 50% of what comes off farm, for example.
Correct.
It's hectic.
And in a country like South Africa, where some of the farmers are larger, there's financing mechanisms to start to offset some of that loss. But if you look at a place like Uganda, where I built up an agriculture business for the last 10 years, you see farmers are earning like pennies on the dollar. There's a very interesting infographic which I can share that the Financial Times did. They dissected the cost of a cup of coffee. And a coffee in the UK is like £2.50. And it showed that farmers were getting like 0.4% of that £2.50, which is crazy.
And I think in coffee, it's a major issue regarding that percentage, and it's just not equitable. It's quite interesting. I mean, around food waste, I heard one of our clients, funny enough, was talking to me the other day, lives in Kailami Estate. Out there there. And what they've done at Kailami Estate, it's a fascinating thing. They've now got a team of people employed. So as a home, all your food waste, they encourage you to put in a separate bin. They've rolled out the bins. And all that food waste goes down to the bottom of the property where they are making compost for the estate. And it is such a fantastic idea.
Can I give you a better idea?
Yeah.
So I did a project for a company out of Canada talking about food waste. And here are the numbers on the project. $10 million investment. The project would generate between $10 to $11 million in annual revenue. IRR of about 33%, payback in under 3 years. And what it did is it took food waste at farm level or from food processors or juice manufacturers, upcycled that into powders and purees, as well as food supplements, and sold it into the food service, the pharma, as well as into the development community.
Yeah, bars, nutrition, yeah, amazing.
And that was
that's clever.
And as an investor, if you see numbers like that, you can't get better returns.
Yeah.
But you can also just do a lot of good at the same time.
Do a lot of good, yeah. It's just the right slide.
Yeah, so that's the right side. So, I think we've spoken about this, but where the investment makes a difference: renewable energy, infrastructure, and climate resilient agriculture. All right.
Should I jump to next?
You can jump to the next one.
Yep.
All right. So where we were at COP, we participated in a number of ways. I sat on a panel that was co-hosted by PwC and Microsoft, talking about the green revolution and how digital innovation can drive sustainable transformation in the region. There was, I think that PwC did a good job bringing the panelists together. There were people from Standard Chartered Bank, from an NGO, Space for Giants, people that ran renewable projects across Saudi Arabia and the UAE, and another chap that worked for TACA, which is a renewable regulator in the UAE. We had a really good conversation looking at different views and what could actually get done. And one of the comments that I made was just around this whole food waste conversation. We're talking about very big ideas, big investments, but they're very simple things that we can do, like building projects around food waste, or even as simply as building an app that we can connect farmers to a marketplace to start reducing the amount of crop that gets wasted at a farm level and actually gets to market. They always say the world is food insecure, and I argue that the world is it's not food insecure. Food is just immobile.
Yeah, it's inefficient.
It's inefficient.
Yeah.
The other thing that we did is we hosted a roundtable that was together with a partner of ours, which is called ASC Impact. ASC is a forestry fund based out of Switzerland, and they do reforestation and agriculture projects around sub-Saharan Africa. So that project's in Angola, Ethiopia, and Congo-Brazzaville. And essentially, they're raising a $100 million fund. They've got received funding in for about 30 million, and they're building some exciting projects. And I think what's really interesting about that fund is they're not just doing the forestation, but to create larger impact and give their investors a quicker return. They're doing large-scale agriculture projects alongside the forestry.
From a South Africa perspective now, we would have had representatives here, I'm assuming.
100%.
Who would they have typically have been? Private sector or?
Private sector, public sector. There were some of the development organizations, governments.
They were there?
I think Remgro was there.
Okay.
So I had there were quite a few South Africans there.
How do we, it's probably an unfair question is the perception around what South Africa is doing regarding the deliverables of COP28, are we in a good light? Because I think we do. I've seen, you read these things, you don't research them enough now. We talk about the likes of a Sasol being the biggest polluter in the world or whatever it might be. Are we getting a tick, or are we getting a bit of a cross at the moment?
I think a lot of people don't know what South Africa is really doing.
Okay.
But, I had at this roundtable, we had a couple of very influential South Africans that joined the dinner. And we started having this conversation about what South Africa can do with the oil and gas companies and the mines to start building a test case or build up a proof of concept that can be then springboarded into the rest of the continent. And, with all the, mining houses need to commit, I think is it 5% of the net profit to economic empowerment initiatives. Those funds, aren't achieving the maximum impact. But I think there's a lot of projects that we can develop here locally on forestry, agriculture, and whatever else it may be, that would then be used to move into the rest of the continent. Yeah.
I know at one point last year, it was the year before, there was a lot of media press around our public sector, the guys going offshore to Dubai, and there was this massive commitment to agri on the continent and in South Africa. I suppose what I've noticed is there hasn't been much said about it thereafter. So my sense is, as a person that just reads the news, that there's a lot of money that's been committed to South Africa, funding, but I don't know how accessible it's been actually.
I think South Africa is a very complex geography to operate in.
Yeah.
There are a lot of laws that would prohibit a international investor to come in, especially around land ownership, etc. So I think there's an opportunity to be very clever in how to structure an opportunity, so that an investor coming in from overseas is able to get the right structure that would make sense for them, and see the right returns.
It's quite interesting in COP28 and on the Green Revolution. Was that green belt in Sahara, the one that goes from east to west in Africa, was it discussed at all, that reforestation of that from coast to coast?
I think there were conversations around it. I wasn't too involved with anything around it, but look, people were having different conversations on how to do things well.
Because it started.
It started, yeah.
So you can actually see it on Google Maps.
Yeah.
You can actually start to see the green.
Correct.
Yeah, quite amazing.
And what you're also seeing now, in addition to that, is just along the coastline of Africa, there's a lot of mangrove investments that are being made.
Oh, mangrove.
Yeah, because mangroves are better for capturing carbon. Than forestry. Yes, I was looking for that word. It's Paul's fault for not giving me coffee in time.
Yeah, exactly. You see what happens when you don't give a man his coffee in the morning. Okay, that's. Can I? What I don't want to do is miss the opportunity for certain people to ask some questions now, and then we can then. Is anyone in the room or online that has a specific question? Online? No one? Okay, fine. So I didn't want to sort of have any hidden ones, yeah.
No problems. But if there's any questions, I'll share my contact details and
absolutely, thanks.
Happy to chat whenever the need is.
Yeah, absolutely. And what we're going to do is we're going to post this on our wiki. So I think your details on this. They're there.
They should be. Just my no. No, it's not there. My website and company email.
That's fine. I'll share them there. But I mean, as I said, so I think for us, I mean, where is COP generally hosted regionally? Is it Paris?
No, different countries every year. So the next COP will be in Baku in Azerbaijan.
Baku and is it annual?
It's annual, yeah.
Do you think it'll ever come to Africa or South Africa?
I hope so.
Yeah.
No, we did have COP in Durban, you're right.
Did we have in Durban?
Yeah, you're right. It was COP 22, 23.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah, okay, well, there we go. So, I mean, obviously an amazing experience for you, for your organization. And obviously then I can imagine now it's one of those things where you are engaging with thought leaders around the world.
Absolutely.
And I do like the one deliverable there where it's around, we can't just come there, have a great chat, commit to some things, and then the talk is cheap.
Exactly, because we often forget. And, you know, the other point that was raised, and I think it's critically important for us to keep in mind, is that, you know, we talk about, you know, limiting the water usage, or we talk about limiting emissions by these very big standards that the international community has set. Mm. But you know what? If we just take one step forward, we don't need to run the marathon. Mm. So, and I think that's what organizations need to do a lot more now, is just take that step, finish the first thing, and then move on to the next step.
Yeah. How do the oil-producing countries? I mean, I've found it quite interesting how oil-producing countries. I mean, it's almost like this conflict of interest, right? In terms of transitioning away from fossil fuels, but obviously being driven by oil.
Mm-hmm. So, you know what? The reality is I don't know if oil will go away anytime soon. And you know, there was a lot of media coverage during COP that very big oil and gas deals were signed during COP, which is very counterproductive, right, and contradictory. But you know, I think, you know, we have to show the balance and how to make things more economical in renewables and start slowly shifting away. You know, to be very honest, unless you're in a continent like the EU or a country like the US, nobody really cares about you know, carbon emissions or ESG, because right now 99% of the world is looking to survive.
Just about, yeah.
Businesses are looking to make money. Investors are looking to see a return, and that's the truth. But you know, where we're trying to play as an organization is to start showing the value from ESG and seeing where we can create efficiency so that we put more money in people's pockets. Because if I tell you guys as investors, you know, here's a project that's going to see a return of 20%, you'll listen to me. And then if I can say that you're going to make an impact through X, Y, and Z, I might hook you and we might sign the deal. Yeah.
Well, I think that's very much the approach that we've taken, is to try and, first of all, I suppose, focus more on impact than ESG, just in terms of our specific focus point, and recognizing where you can sort of kill two birds with one stone in terms of trying to ensure that there's an alignment of the value with these impactful business models, rather than, it doesn't have to be either or.
Correct.
I mean, it's that balance. I like the idea of that balance, is that, you know, as you said, the reality of some dirty commodity, call it, is a reality that's required still. And actually, I think they talk about oil. There's so much of it. So it's a sustainable energy, but it's around offset. Hey, it's around because that then it all comes back to the survival. Hey, as long as the offset stops the temperature rise of the world, then that we sort of making progress. Hey?
Making progress.
Yeah.
One step at a time. And then if we work together, development community, private sector, need to figure out how to speak the same language, because essentially the goal is the same. Oftentimes you speak to some of the big funds and they'll say, our job's not to work with poor people, so we're not going to work with the UN. But the reality is, if it's an agri-fund working with farmers, you need the UN to bring together all the farmers so that they can aggregate the commodity and sell it to the exporter in a manner that they want to receive it.
Yeah.
Paul, so in a point of interest, 10 years ago, green revolution, all these things didn't matter to me. But when my grandchildren came up, and it was like a continuity of my, I don't know, blood, whatever, string, it's funny how more and more I get interested in these things. So the car that I bought, totally away from the usual cars, the half electric thing. And it's actually the older generation, and we go to a braai, a social, it's funny, the old guys and the old people are talking how not to, the wastage, how to put it in different packets. The 40-year-olds are not doing that. They're not talking like that.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
We do, this is Tony, by the way, and we do tease Tony. He's probably a man that owns more batteries than anyone else. His bike's got a battery, his car has a battery.
Thanks.
I don't doubt he uses some battery operated Gillette shaver and other sort of things not to be spoken about. So this is Tony. But that's very interesting. It's an interesting observation. But do you think then, Tony, that younger people are? It's not that they're not. Yeah. It's not that they're snubbing it. It's just maybe they've grown up saying this is part of my life. I don't have to. It's not a big conversation point because we've grown up knowing we have to do this.
You've got a good point. Procreation is natural to most human beings.
Yeah.
And the next generation, comes up. And we don't think about things like that. I didn't when my kids were growing up. But it's funny enough, when the next procreation comes up, you'd like to think that you're going to leave some impact in their lives.
Yeah. No, sure.
It's really interesting. I've been doing a lot of research, and there's, the Gen Zs are now very conscious about the brands that they associate themselves with. There's a company I came across called I can't remember the name now. I've lost it. It'll come back to me. But what they do is they've paired up with all these different brands, and when you go online to shop, you can actually see the impact, the carbon emissions, if the company is a B Corp company, etc., and then you can make a conscious decision whether to buy from them or not.
It's my sense I get is it's going to become more and more an element of choice in mainstream consumerism around what that business stands for, etc.
Absolutely.
That's 100%.
The company's called Ample. Ample, A-M-P-L-E.
That's really clever naming because,
I think one of the biggest problems is reality versus perception, and I think that less and less. So those companies with bigger marketing budgets are able to hide behind a whole bunch of, perception changing marketing.
Yeah, greenwashing,
and in fact, guys who are making, and in fact, companies who could perhaps make the biggest difference can't afford the governance layers to even comply.
Absolutely. No, it's hard, and companies don't have you're right, they don't have the budgets, they don't have the resources, and they're just looking to survive and keep the lights on. But I think just it's a very slow journey, but I think there is hope out there.
I mean, if you look at that coffee farmer example, so often that is the coffee comes out ready to consume, it leaves the farm, and there's no real extra value added other than perceived value. In other words, only because the brand of that coffee bean do you perceive it so much more. The actual product is leaving at 1/100th of the value is what's going to actually generate the value, and then it's increasing. What's that? 99 or 100 times more in cost for the same value product.
Yeah, all the money in coffee is made by the roaster.
Yeah. It is interesting, a coffee maker in South Africa who's doing, I must say, making a big change. How's this for a shout out on Edge? It's called Seam Coffee, SEAM. You get it, you can actually request it at Tasha's, etc. I actually know the coffee maker is another guy, a friend from back in the day. He's actually moved. He's personally moved. He's been roasting in Johannesburg here, and he's physically moved him and his family to the Philippines, Indonesia or Philippines, I think, where most of the coffee.
Yeah, there's a lot of coffee
To actually
there.
work with the farmers on the ground to make sure they get more out of the coffee value chain now. So there's some cool stuff that happens like that on the ground that needs to catch fire more.
No, I love coffee. Like, and our family business is in the coffee trade.
Yeah.
So we work with specialty coffee farmers across East Africa and send it to different markets.
Is that still out of Uganda?
So no, we moved during COVID. We moved the office to Canada.
Okay.
But we still work with farmers in Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, Ethiopia, and the DRC.
The DRC. Okay, fantastic. And to end off, you here visiting family?
Here visiting family, have a couple of meetings. I was at the mining in Daba last week. This week.
This week,
and then back to Dubai on Tuesday.
Are we winning on the mining side of things?
To be honest, I only went to the Indaba. Actually, I didn't go to the Indaba once.
Yeah. So
but just a lot of meetings and people I needed to meet.
Yeah. I always wonder about the mining in Indaba. We must go one day, see what's spoken about.
We were there yesterday, my brother and I. We had to share a bed because there were no rooms.
Yeah, it was crazy though.
It was crazy.
No? Back to what it was like at home. Yeah. Which brother? Maybe ask. Mark. Mark, that's the way you look so exhausted. Did your butt kick you?
He snores, He does.
Yeah.
No, it was chaos, and traffic was a mess yesterday.
Okay, so stay out of there. Okay, so listen, it's obviously fantastic, and thanks for, on a whim, by the way, on a phone call last week, it was very much, would you mind, I'm seeing you today anyway, would you mind just coming to chat to everyone at Fedgroup now, because it's so close to our heart what you actually do for a living, and obviously COP is the mystique of it now, so I appreciate your intervention. It's great to hear.
Thank you guys for the time. It was a pleasure. And if anyone's ever up in Dubai, please reach out.
Well, we're going to share your details, Yeah, thank you. Okay, guys, we'll tail off then. Have a good Friday, good weekend, everyone. Enjoy.